Welcome to today's video where we will dive into the history of one of the most iconic American cars of the 20th century, the 1959 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. This will be a brief introduction to Cadillac's significance in the American automotive industry, and I will be taking my car out for a test drive. So it's significant to me because I happen to own one and I think it's the most awesome car ever built. Even if you know nothing about cars and your only exposure to American automobiles is TV and movies, you probably recognize its shape. It's been featured in everything from t-shirts, postage stamps, and the quintessential icon of 50s Americana in all its grandeur and absurdity. It is, of course, the 59 Cadillac. The 59 Cadillac emerged from a seismic shift at General Motors and marked the transition between two very different eras in automotive design. For more than 30 years, Harley J. Earl held ultimate authority over all GM Motors automotive designs. Unlike his successors, he did not rise through the ranks. The styling selection was created by visionary GM President Alfred P. Sloan specifically for Earl to run. Harley Earl had come to Detroit in 1926 to design the LaSalle, Cadillac's new companion make. The results had been so commercially and aesthetically successful that Sloan conceived an art and color selection that would extend Earl's talents to the entire GM line. While Harley Earl is often credited with the design of the 1959 Cadillac, the credit really also goes to William Mitchell. Harley Earl hired the 23-year-old designer in 1935. In 1937, Earl made Mitchell head of design at Cadillac. As a sign of Earl's regard for Mitchell was the fact that in 1949, Earl drafted Mitchell to run his outside design company, the Harley Earl Corporation. It was not an assignment Mitchell relished, but he later credited it for honing his abilities as an art director and the skill of pitching and selling concepts to clients. Earl sweetened the pot for his protege by giving Mitchell 10% of HEC's gross income, a tidy sum that considerably exceeded Mitchell's GM salary. Earl brought Mitchell back to General Motors in June 1953, promoting him to Director of Styling and informing him that he would be Earl's successor as Vice President. By 1953, Earl was still not ready to relinquish power just yet in his final decade at GM. Earl's leadership of styling could fairly be called enlightened despotism. He was brilliant and tyrannical, commanding loyalty through a combination of charisma, fear, and showmanship. Earl's aesthetic for cars could be summarized as longer, lower, wider. Like many designers of his generation, he was fascinated by aircraft design and streamlining. He was never particularly concerned with the actual aerodynamics, but he was always interested in the sleekness and unity of form. Earl was always aware that he had to walk a fine line, anticipating where public taste was going, without making his cars too radical for the average buyer. He was hesitant, for example, about the tail fins, which first bowed on the 1948 Cadillac. And when Frank Hershey originally presented his befinned clay model, Earl ordered him to take the fins off, fearing they might be too much for the conservative Cadillac customers. It was only after GM President Charlie Wilson and the new Cadillac chief engineer Ed Cole decided that they liked the fins that Earl embraced them. One morning, August 1956, GM stylist Chuck Jordan happened on a fenced-off lot filled with new 1957 Chryslers, probably awaiting shipment to dealers. Chrysler styling chief Virgil Exner had already revived the company's fortunes with his $100 million forward-look 1955, which gave Chrysler's previously dull and boxy cars stylistic parity with GM. Now Exner had leaped ahead with an even bolder design direction. Where GM cars were bulky and fat-looking, the new Chrysler products were clean, wedge-shaped, and more low-slung than even Harley Earl had dared. The new Plymouth, for instance, was almost 6 inches lower than the 1957 Chevrolet. Jordan returned to the office and told Bill Mitchell what he had seen. That afternoon, Mitchell went back to the lot to see for himself, as did many other GM designers. They were deeply shaken. They realized that they had just lost their unquestioned styling leadership. Harley Earl's mandate for the 1959 Cadillac models was more of the same, but compared to the new 1957 Chrysler, that direction suddenly seemed embarrassing. There was rumbles among the design staff that if something weren't done, GM would be dead in the water stylistically. According to Mitchell Lamb, who later interviewed many GM designers of this period, it was Bill Mitchell who finally made the decision. Earl was traveling in Europe and largely out of contact. In his absence, Mitchell was in charge. Mitchell had sworn that he would never let Earl down, but he had his own future to think about. He gathered together the senior designers, and they agreed to formulate a new styling direction, abandoning almost everything Earl had previously dictated for the 1959 cars. Mitchell enlisted the support of division managers and of Harlow Curtis, who regularly stopped by to see the new cars. All of the new designs were sleeker and crisper, taking their lead not from Harley Earl, but Mitchell, and indirectly from Virgil Exner. No one expected Mr. Earl to be happy when he returned from Europe, and many feared the inevitable explosion. For a man of Earl's ego and temperament, a rebellion of such magnitude was unimaginable. As it happened, Earl was so staggered that he wandered around the studios for days, almost speechless. Earl ordinarily didn't hesitate to fire anyone for any reason, but this time it would have meant the purge of his entire senior staff, including Mitchell, by all accounts his favorite son and heir apparent. Moreover, Harlow Curtis, Earl's chief patron, since the retirement of Sloan earlier that year, had already sided with the mutineers, leaving Earl outmaneuvered. Faced with little alternative, Earl finally threw his support behind the new direction. Once Earl accepted the new direction, the rallying cry for the design studios became, "Innovate or you're all fired." The desire to one-up Virgil Exner was as much a matter of pride as of business necessity. As outrageous as some of the final 1959 designs became, they were less grotesque than many of the concepts that didn't make it. The individual stylists knew if their ideas weren't sufficiently outrageous, their jobs were on the line. Born of these contradictory pressures, the 1959 Cadillac emerged as a delirious mixture of the familiar and the outlandish. Few of its individual styling cues were truly new, but even those recognizable elements were turned to 11. Color options for the 59 model offered over 40 colored combinations, including iconic options like Dover White, Persian Sand, and Pompanian Red. Cadillac embraced bold and elegant colors to match the car's glamorous persona. I believe my Cadillac is a Vegas turquoise poly. Other specifications for the 59 Cadillac: the engine of the car was a 390 cubic inch V8 engine producing 325 horsepower. The transmission was a 4-speed Hydra-Matic automatic transmission. It was considered state-of-its-art of its time. Despite its size, it could go from 0 to 60 in 10 seconds, which was impressive for a car of that size. Interior features included options like air conditioning, cruise control, power windows, and a signal-seeking radio, luxuries that catered to the high-end market. The most significant change and the least controversial was that the 59 Cadillac was lower and slimmer looking than the 58. Overall height dropped about 3 inches, model for model, but the belt line and hood were lower too. The 1959 Cadillacs were as much as 8 inches longer than their predecessors and just as heavy, but they looked lighter. The bulbous shapes that had previously characterized Cadillac styling were gone. The truly essential features, of course, are the fins. 1959 was the 12th year of the tail fin for the Cadillac, and they had already become quite prominent. The new design generally credited to stylist Dave Holes, took them a step further. The fins of the 57 and 58 cars are basically kick-ups of the rear fenders and didn't carry much additional decoration. On the 59, Holes moved the twin taillights, which previously were mounted at the base of the fins, to the middle, adding twin bullet-shaped taillights. Without the tail fins, the 1959s would still have been a grandiose and perhaps a little ridiculous, but the Buck Rogers fins took the design completely over the top. The 1959 Cadillac and its GM siblings met with a mixed reception from the public. Sales were up very slightly over 1958, although still not as good as 56, 57. Although critics generally liked the new Caddy lines, all but most enthusiastic admitted to doubts about the gaudy tail fins. The 1959 models would be Harley Earl's swan song. He reached GM's mandatory retirement age on November 22, 1958, about 5 weeks after the 1959 Cadillacs went on sale. Many critics are still reluctant to accept mass-market consumer goods like automobiles as works of art. But if we judge Earl in terms of his impact on the American aesthetic, he towers over figures like Norman Rockwell and Frank Lloyd Wright. Even you dismiss these cars, or automobiles in general, as crude products of a decadent and wasteful consumer culture, their significance is inescapable. Much of what I have said to this point has come from a very well-researched and credited article on a website, 8 Up With Motor, Requiem for Mr. Earl, the 1959 Cadillac, and the Winter of Harley Earl. A couple other things worth mentioning on the 59 Cadillac, similar to other cars of its era, is equipped with a generator, not an alternator. Instead of an alternator, the 59 Cadillac used a DC generator, which was typical for cars of that era. The generator was belt-driven and produced electrical power to charge the battery and run the vehicle's electrical components. Generators, however, had a lower efficiency at low RPMs compared to alternators, which became the norm in the 1960s. Lighting system in the 59 Cadillac featured large dual quad headlights, which were much brighter and more efficient due to the 12-volt electrical system. The tail lights and various running lights are powered by the same system. For power accessories, Cadillac was known for its luxury features, and the 59 model included several power accessories like windows, power seats, power steering, power brakes. Cadillac was equipped with an electric clock and an AM radio. Both of these were powered directly by the car's 12-volt system. Maintenance and troubleshooting issues, which I can attest to, like many cars from the era. Electrical systems, the 59, experienced issues, corroded connections, worn out generator brushes, failing voltage regulators, short circuits due to aging insulation and wires. Routine maintenance and regular checks of the electrical components are necessary to ensure reliable operation. Many owners have converted to an alternator. I have not done that yet. My 59 Cadillac that you're going to be seeing here is all original. 59 Cadillac uses drum brakes, which may not provide the same, well, I can assure you, they do not provide the same stopping power as modern disc brakes. Regular maintenance adjustments are needed to keep them effective. Also, my Cadillac still has the original master cylinder with a single brake line. And if you have a leak, the pedal goes directly to the floor and you have no brakes. Just a tip, if that happens to you and you're driving a 59 Cadillac, you can use the parking brake to slowly stop the car. The original radiator and cooling components may be insufficient by modern standards. I can tell you that they are if you're in a parade or something with a car like this. Overheating is a common issue. Updating the cooling system is something that a lot of people do. This car is still all original, like I said, so it's good to keep her moving. The 1959 Coupe de Ville remains an icon of American automotive history, representing a time when luxury and innovation and bold design were at the forefront of car culture. From its towering fins to its powerful V8 engine, it captures an era of optimism and extravagance that continues to inspire and fascinate car enthusiasts today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.